Revelation 2749. From the 21st and the 22nd of May 1943. God's ways are often incomprehensible. God's ways are often incomprehensible to people. His wisdom and His love show them to people as they are helpful for the salvation of their souls, yet the human being is unable to recognize this. He only sees the suffering but not the blessing of suffering, and he does not see the goal either. Instead, his eyes are only fixed on the path which often seems impassable. He sees the stones which often make it impassable and grumbles and complains that God allows him to take this very path. And yet people should bear in mind that God's wisdom and love allows him to walk the earthly path as his soul requires. For He knows both the human being's state of maturity as well as the effect of every event on him, and thus He arranges everything such that it is often incomprehensible to people. If the human being is in danger of going wrong of his own accord, God will intervene for his salvation, yet still leaving him free will insofar as that he does not necessarily have to take the path God prescribes to him, but that he can walk according to His will. Only he will be so obviously guided that he would have to recognize higher guidance if he paid attention to every event around him. As soon as he believes, he also hands himself over to God's guidance without resistance, and then he does not demand but humbly submits to God's will. He takes the path God prescribes to him, and he will also finally recognize God's wisdom and love as soon as he retrospectively looks back on his earthly path at the end of his life on earth in a mature state of soul. In often wonderful ways God brings people together who are to help each other to ascend because one needs the other for his higher development. He lets people walk through earthly life together in order to give them the opportunity to spiritually further themselves in serving love. He leads people into the most diverse situations in which they can mature, and it will always be incomprehensible to them as long as they don't recognize their spiritual development as an earthly purpose, for it often appears as if God destroys people's happiness. But then they are in danger of breaking as a result of earthly happiness, that is, they think too little of their soul when the earth brings them fulfillment of their longing. And therefore the human being will usually have to give up earthly happiness for the sake of his soul, and his life's fate is often so strange that he finds it difficult to believe in a God of love and wisdom. Yet spiritual development is the goal and purpose of earthly life. And where this is in danger, where it is not striven for, people often need harsh intervention on God's part. His ways are often stony and thorny, but they lead safely upwards. And blessed are those who allow themselves to be pushed onto such paths without contradiction and travel it despite all obstacles until they reach their destination. They can return to the broad, passable path at any time. That is, they can create their earthly path pleasantly for themselves by virtue of their free will, yet God arranges the events in the individual's life in such a way that he has to muster enormous willpower to master them if he wants to escape God's influence. But if he allows himself to be guided by God, he will seemingly take a far harder path, but always with God's support, and thus also reach his goal. For the harshness of fate makes it easier for him to find God if he stands apart from him, and then he overcomes every obstacle and also recognizes why he has to take that path. He learns to understand that only God's love and wisdom are at work which determine every person's path of life in order to save his soul from eternal ruin. Amen.